success, media, network, 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 network.
This is your show.
Good day, successors. I'm Antonio Holman, and welcome to the 4 Principles of Success, number 3, where I chat with successful people about how they enhance their businesses and lives in the areas of knowledge, health, wealth, and spirituality. Today, we're talking to Jessica Rhodes. Jessica is the founder and CEO of InterviewConnections.com, the premier guest booking agency for podcasters and guest experts. And she is the acclaimed author of Interview Connections, Rock the Podcast from Both Sides of the Mic. Along with being a speaker at Podcast Movement, Podfest.us, and Dream Business Academy, Jessica is the host of Interview Connections TV, where each week she helps her viewers rock the podcast from both sides of the mic. She hosts and co-hosts 3 podcasts, Rhodes to Success, The Parenting Rhodes, and The Podcast Producers with Cory Coates, which was selected by Apple as a how-to podcast show in iTunes, and has also been included in the syllabus for a course about podcasting and audio journalism at Western University in Ontario, Canada. Jessica, are you ready to help our listeners prepare for success?
I'm ready. Thank you so much for having me, Antonio.
Excellent. I'm so glad you're here. All right, Jessica, that was a juicy mouthful of information about you, but we really don't know anything about your personal life. So how about you give us a little hint?
Sure. Yeah. I live in Rhode Island up here in New England, northeast part of the United States. And I'm married. I have 2 kids. My son Nathan is 3.5 and my daughter Lucy is about 16 months. And I started my business because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And my previous life, before I was an entrepreneur and a podcaster, I ran a nonprofit field canvas. So for about 6 years, I worked at Clean Water Action. And what we did is we went door to door through neighborhoods and we activated people. We community organized around environmental and public health issues. We did fundraising, did political organizing. So I was in a very different line of work, but I wanted, when I became pregnant and wanted, we started our family, I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, because when you work in nonprofit and work in politics, they're long hours and the pay isn't great. You don't really do it for the pay. You do it for, the passion that you have for what you're doing. And life just kind of changed for me when I realized I was going to become a mom. I wanted to change things up. And so my dad, who's a business coach, told me about being a virtual assistant and having a home-based business. So it was really my passion and motivation to be a stay-at-home mom that kind of opened my eyes to the idea of being my own boss and having a business.
Wow. So for those who don't absolutely know, tell us what your company does and how it can actually help podcasters and podcast guests become successful.
Sure. My company is Interview Connections, and we're a guest booking agency. So when I first started my business as a virtual assistant, I was booking people on podcasts as a guest expert. My dad was my first client. So he's a business coach. He kind of got me into being a virtual assistant, it's an online business owner, somebody who provides services virtually. And so one of the first tasks I was doing was booking people for podcast interviews and finding guests for my clients' podcasts. And as I was making those connections and, introducing people to each other for interviews, I started getting questions. People started saying, well, do you do this for other people? I didn't know there was somebody who actually connected people for interviews. I've just, podcasters would tell me that they've just been finding their own guests. And if people were getting interviewed, they said, I'm just, I'm getting requested or I'm finding my own interviews. I don't have anyone doing it for me. And so podcasting was really starting to get popular at that time. We're talking about 2013, fall, spring, summer of 2013. And so I just kind of had this light bulb moment of, wanting to scale and grow my business and do, make more money, but not necessarily work more and more hours because I had a newborn at home. And B, I just saw this need in the marketplace of people wanting to start podcasts, but not knowing how to find guests, and people that wanted to be guests on shows, but not knowing how to go about getting themselves on shows. And so I created interviewconnections.com to be the premier, guest booking agency for podcasters and guest experts. So in our company, we work with both podcast hosts, people that have a show, need guests, don't know how to find them, don't know where to look, don't know how to get them on the show. So we serve them, we find and book their guests, and then we also work with entrepreneurs and subject matter experts, people that want to be getting the publicity and exposure and, making the relationships you can have when you're in a guest on a podcast. So we work with entrepreneurs to find podcasts that are in their target market and speaking to their target audience, and we pitch them and we represent them. We reach out to podcast hosts and tell the host why our client is such a great fit for their show, and we get them booked as a guest. So that's what we do. It's pretty straightforward and simple. And it's been, we book over 400 interviews a month now at Interview Connections. I have about 10 guest bookers working for me. So we've grown really fast and furious over the last few years. And I think that just speaks to the power of podcasting. Is a lot of people are starting podcasts and seeing it be really successful in their business and in their life.
From that description, that company, that everything that you guys do, it sounds extremely powerful. Extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to kind of find, because new guys like me were kind of wondering, how do I do this? How do I talk to this person? How do I connect with this person? But with your company, it takes all the guesswork out of it. Totally.
Yeah, exactly. And we do, I've talked to people that say, well, I don't need help finding guests. I know so many people. And I say, great, we're not for you. But there's people that start a podcast and they don't have a whole Rolodex of people that they could ask, or they don't have any connections yet. They have no idea where to start. And so that's kind of where we come in. We're very good at doing that web research to find people. And we also have a database of literally thousands of people that we've booked on different shows and podcasters that we've brought, guests to. So it really shortcuts people's, kind of shortcuts their success a little bit, because we can make connections that they, would have taken them forever to make. So it's just so fun. I mean, some people call me the matchmaker of podcasting because I can think of so many examples where, people that are best friends or they're accountability partners, or they're meeting every week, and, they met through a podcast interview that, my company connected them for.
Wow, that's cool. So now, were you into podcasting before all this at all? Or this just kind of went hand in hand?
I mean, as a listener, yeah, my husband and I, we've been together for almost 10 years. We've been married for about 5 and dated for a long time before that. And he is always, from when he was a child through today, like, he listens to NPR every single day, like it's in the car, on the radio in the morning. So we always have talk radio on. So we pretty much always have podcasts or NPR playing. So I have always listened to podcasts. But didn't think about starting my own podcast even until after I started Interview Connections. So I never, it's funny because some people say, like, I want to start a business in this. For me, it was I kind of fell into podcasting as a business. First, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, so I started whatever I could do from home. I mean, I was literally, one of the tasks I was doing, I was checking links on my dad's website. I mean, it was the most boring thing in the world. I'm like, I have a bachelor's degree. I've got 6 years experience running a nonprofit, and I am clicking links to find broken links. I mean, it was a little bit frustrating at first, but I think, whenever you go into a new field or a new industry, new line of work, you kind of have to pay your dues. And so I was just doing whatever I could charge some money for. And then, when the podcasting kind of fell in my lap, I just started to see, okay, there's an opportunity here. What can I do to really make the most of it? And, it wasn't until about a year after I was booking interviews, being the behind the scenes podcast person, that I thought, okay, I think I need to have my own show. And I was really afraid to start a podcast actually for a while. Like, it was a lot easier for me to give tips about podcasting when I didn't have my own show, because I was like, oh, my expertise is as a listener, I'm giving you objective information, but I realized, I can't, I was afraid of starting a podcast because I didn't think I would be good enough. Like, how embarrassing would it be if this person knows a podcasting, podcast interview agency, and I start a podcast and it stinks. So there was that fear of failure.
Yeah.
And so eventually I just got over that because I realized everyone sucks when they start. Absolutely.
You got that right, man. I've been saying this same story a lot, but I come from years of producing audio, and setting this podcast up was kicking my butt when I was first trying to figure it out.
That's crazy. So tell me about your background in audio.
I was
mic on you.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've been a musician for years, since I was like 10 years old. So wow. I've been doing this music and audio thing forever. And I tried to set up a podcast, and it took me a week to figure it out. I did an interview all the way through, played it back now check this out. I used the recommended software for PC, and it failed over and over and over. I was like, what is going on? I've been following YouTube videos and tutorials and everything, and it still did not work. And I was like, I've been doing this for years. Why am I having trouble with something so simple?
Oh my gosh.
It took me a week to figure it out. And of course, something that didn't work initially, all of a sudden works now. So I'm not second guessing it, but it works.
So that can be the issue with software recording, is sometimes there's no explanation. And I record on software too. I'll use GarageBand for a solo episode. I'll record, either with the Skype call recorder, or if I have a podcaster on my show, I'll say, hey, do you mind recording your audio? And then I'll, have my producers edit a double ender, which sounds a lot better than a Skype call recording. But from what I hear from a lot of really experienced podcasters is use, hardware, like actually have an SD card that you're recording into, because software is just... Sometimes you cannot prevent the failures. There's no explanation why they don't work sometimes.
Right, exactly. And my software seems to be okay, and I had to go out and buy a new router. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. I know. When I first started my podcast, I thought, okay, I have no idea how to edit audio. That's all a mystery to me. But it was also, early on in my business, cash flow wasn't great. I don't even think I was, money was coming in, but I don't think I was really making any money because I had expenses. And so I thought, but I want to start a podcast. Oh God, I can't afford $300 a month for somebody to edit my show. Yeah. And so I tried to do it, and I probably spent like an hour and a half, like messing with all the dials. I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff does. Right. So I use my co-host, Cory Coates, co-owns Podfly Productions, and I connected with him, and he's like, just send me your episode. I'll just do it for free. And I was like, are you sure? He goes, yeah, let me just show you what we can do. And he sent it back to me, and I thought, oh, wow, that sounds good.
And he probably did it really quickly too.
Oh, he probably did it so fast. And, I spent an hour and a half doing it. It didn't sound half as good. And I wasted all that time. And I thought, and it was just kind of a reality check, because I thought, all right, I could spend an hour and a half trying to edit my own show, not doing a good job, or I could send it to someone, pay them to do it, and spend an hour and a half growing my business and serving my clients, which is probably actually making me money. So it was a good decision. From the get-go, I, outsourced the task of something I have no idea how to do.
Yeah. So that's the typical entrepreneurial quandary. Outsourcing,
exactly.
And we're so afraid that somebody's going to screw it up, but you just kind of have to take that chance and leap of faith, I guess you could say.
It's a good lesson, the whole delegating and outsourcing thing, because and I pride myself in being great at delegating, great at outsourcing. I've got a whole team of guest bookers, and it's funny because just recently, Antonio, I got an executive assistant, somebody to actually assist me personally, and it took me so long to get there, and I realized I got to this point where I just was feeling so busy, and I felt like my day was just directed by my email every day. It was just putting out fires, and if an email came in, that's what I did. And then if I didn't have any emails, I'm like, I don't know what to do because I don't have emails. The productivity was at a low point. And I was on my mastermind call, and I said, I don't know what my question is. I don't know what I need to work on. I just know that I am just always putting out fires. My email leads me, and I don't know what to outsource. And there were a couple of people on the call that are virtual assistants, and I just kind of listed a couple of things. I'm like, I'm dealing with, order declines, if a client's credit card declines, I'm dealing with that. And they're like, whoa. Like, that is one task that the CEO should not be handling. Like, that is totally something an assistant should help with. Yeah. And they were like, you need an assistant. It's one of those things where if you're thirsty, you should have been drinking water already. Yeah. They're like, if you're feeling this overwhelmed and busy, you need an assistant. And so, somebody that was actually on that call in the mastermind group came on board as my EA, and it's been like life changing. And she's a person that was, you emailed and asked me to be on your show, and Kate got it all set up and put it on my calendar. And it's like, oh my God, it saves me. And it's like a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, and it adds up. And now I don't know what I would do without her.
Yeah, it does. So now you've mentioned a couple times about having a mastermind group. Now, how important do you feel a mastermind group is to being successful?
I think it is so, so important because for a couple of reasons. A, when you're growing a business, when you're working to reach a level of success, it's really critical that you're surrounding yourself by people who are going to lift you up. So, and also, there's the Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. So by that answer, you want to be spending as much time as possible with people that will lift you up and will help you reach higher levels of success. So in my mastermind group, it's actually my dad, I've mentioned a couple times, is a business coach. So it's actually his mastermind program. And yeah, he makes me invest financially. I am my dad's paying client. I don't get a free ride. And so I'm in his group, and it's great because everyone in the group is they're action taking entrepreneurs. They're not trying to find the easy route, and people really help you. And the other reason I think it's really helpful to be in a mastermind group is it's a safe place to celebrate your successes. I mean, I don't know about you, Antonio, but a lot of times, if I'm feeling like if something really great happens, I almost don't want to post it on Facebook, or there's certain people I don't want to tell because they might think like, oh, good for you. Glad life is so great for you. Right. Like you almost feel embarrassed and you don't want to sound like you're bragging.
Right.
But when you have a mastermind group, that's a place where you can feel safe to say, I did this thing. I feel really great about it. And people say, yeah, you did do really well. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that's really important because, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're going to celebrate, you want to celebrate victories. You're going to have successes, and you want to be able to take a moment to have people say, well done. So, I mean, that's it just for the mindset. But also just to have some guidance from people who have reached levels of success that you haven't gotten to yet. So, I mean, there's people in my mastermind group that have reached, high 6-figure, 7-figure businesses who have been in business for 10 years. And so they can give me tips around things that I don't know yet. So I've brought ideas to my mastermind group. Like I remember this one idea I had. It was about 2 years ago, and I thought I would hire a virtual assistant to do something. It's a little fuzzy, but I'm like, I'm going to hire a VA and she's going to do all this stuff. And literally on the mastermind call, one by one, everyone said, don't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, oh my God, I thought this was the best idea. And they were like, don't do it. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do it. And it was not a good idea. Yeah. So it's just, mastermind groups and coaches can really, shortcut your success. They can save you a lot of money and a lot of time by telling you not to implement your dumb ideas, but also give you really good ideas too, like things that you wouldn't have thought of. They can give you a really good idea too.
So now you said you're part of your dad's mastermind program. Is that what you said?
Yeah. It's the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program.
Now, how do you find members to be part of your personal mastermind group? Is that something you pick yourself, or they're just there to be part of it?
Yeah. So, there's a couple different kinds of mastermind groups. So I don't have a personal mastermind group that I choose the members. So in my dad's mastermind group, it is a paid mastermind. So he leads it. That is his business. So members, everyone in that group pays a minimum of $500 a month to be in that group. And there are VIP level members that are paying, like $1,800 a month, and they get more with the program from my dad. So everyone in that group is a paid member. So basically my dad is the person that is attracting and signing people up in the group. I have had mastermind groups where I connect with another entrepreneur, and we come together and we're like, I was in a private mastermind group with a friend of mine, and we were kind of in similar places. Like she had some strengths and that weren't my strengths and vice versa. So we would meet one-on-one. And it was just kind of, we were, attracted to each other, and we realized we could help each other. And so we did that for about a year. She and I would meet. So I think, to kind of answer your question, like how to, find people for your group, I think if you're going to facilitate your own mastermind group where it's not paid, but people come together, I do think it is important for one person to rise up as somewhat of a facilitator, because if nobody is taking leadership and kind of guiding the conversation, it does kind of, sometimes the conversations are just that. They're just phone conversations. In my personal mastermind that I did for about a year with a couple of friends of mine, I mean, it was great to meet with these ladies because we did help each other, but because none of us raise our hand and say, I'm going to facilitate these. A lot of the calls were just like, there was no structure to them. But if you structure. Have somebody, exactly. Like if you have somebody that can kind of lead and take notes and say, okay, now it's your turn and now it's your turn, I think you can get a lot more out of them. And it's, it's funny. I think, with anything you do, whether it's choosing somebody for a mastermind or, thinking of, podcasting, choosing a co-host. If you want to have a co-host, you kind of have to know in your gut that these are people you actually want to spend time with, and that these are people that you feel like you can trust, and then again are going to lift you up. I've been approached in the past, people saying, hey, we're kind of putting together mastermind groups. You want to join it? And quite frankly, I felt like they were kind of further behind in the business journey than where I was. And I almost felt like I would have been doing a lot of the mentoring and coaching where, but I want to be around people that are going to kind of pull me ahead. So it's kind of a balance, because obviously, like if I'm in a mastermind group where everyone is ahead of me, they want to feel like I'm going to help them. But I think you always have, you have strengths and weaknesses. Like in my mastermind group, there's one person I can think of who's he's at a successful dental practice. He's a real estate investor. I assure you, he probably has a much higher net worth than I do. Been in business a lot longer. But when he's decided to start a podcast, he had no idea where to start. Oh. And I could offer all of the tips and direction that he needed in that front. So you kind of everyone brings different levels of experience for different things.
Wow. That's incredible. I have yet to be involved in a mastermind. It's always something that appeals to me more and more every week, pretty much, because I don't know. I'm starting to feel like a sponge, I mean, this podcasting thing's new to me still. So I'm really questing for some knowledge.
Yeah, it's like you have to know what your goal is too. What do you want to get out of it? What is that specific goal? And be, in a group where that is a goal that the facilitator, the group, the coach of the group, or if it's a just small mastermind of just a couple of people that come together and nobody's paying to be there. I think there has to be that focused goal. I mean, there's a lot of groups that are Facebook group masterminds where there's like a couple hundred people in it, and I don't really think those are mastermind groups. Yeah. I think a mastermind group has to be where, there can be, in the paid mastermind that I'm in, my dad's group, there's, about 30 people, but still everyone, there's private calls. We get to know each other. There's an event that we all go to every year. So, I think it's great to, as far as finding them, is to just ask around to other people that are in similar places or maybe a couple steps ahead of you and wherever you want to go and say, hey, do you have a mastermind that you're in that you really like? Just like with when you're hiring someone or finding a service provider, getting referrals, I think is super important, because anyone can make a fancy website and say they're the best at something, but there's a lot of horror stories of people that, seem to be perfect on the outside. So I think referrals are really important. Yeah, big time. So, Jessica, you are a very, very busy person. You've got a lot of good things going for yourself. And before this, you were doing a lot of organizational things before pregnancy and everything. Now, let's go back a little bit further. What was the very first entrepreneurial venture? That is a good question. I think that the very first entrepreneurial, because I didn't, I'm not somebody that was like an entrepreneur from day one. I always had jobs throughout high school. And as soon as I could start babysitting, I was babysitting. So I feel like while those weren't, entrepreneurial ventures, I feel like I had the work ethic of an entrepreneur from very early on. Like when I was a teenager, when I was at 13, my dad lost his job. He got skin cancer. And so our family, financially, while I always had a roof over my head. I always, had meals to eat. There was no extra money to say, here's $20, go to the mall with your friends. Like from very early age, my siblings and I, we had to earn whatever money we wanted to spend, for fun stuff. And so I knew from very early on that there's no handouts, there's no free lunches.
Mm-hmm.
You earn and you work for what you want. And so, while those weren't businesses in and of itself, for me going, babysitting, I remember all throughout high school, like when I worked at the pizza place and the ice cream shop, I was working Friday nights when my friends took Friday nights off to go to the mall and the movies. Those were the nights where I would make money. And, so I've been a really hard worker from day one, but it really wasn't until I started this business that I was a true, business owner and entrepreneur. I've always had jobs before this.
Oh, okay. So what do you feel is the one hardest thing that you struggled to overcome in your business that you've since conquered?
That I've since conquered. The hardest thing to overcome that I've since conquered. That is a really good question. I mean, I think, building a team and delegating and just mastering, I can, confidently say I really feel like I've conquered, creating a really great team culture and team dynamic and having defined roles for everything that's done in my business. And it's still a work in progress because as the business grows, new roles are created that weren't needed before. But I feel like I have conquered that, with the support of my current team members.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I got pregnant with my second child, Lucy, she's 16 months old. So I guess a year and a half ago when I was pregnant with her, I had to grow a team. I was pretty much a solopreneur. I had maybe one or two virtual assistants helping me, but I really had to grow a team and to delegate as much as I could so I could take maternity leave. And it was a huge challenge because my business was growing fast. I mean, I've gone from, $0 as a new entrepreneur 3.5 years ago to, like I said, I'm in the low to mid six figures of my business with over 400 bookings a month. So it's going really fast, and growing that team has been a really, really crucial part of that growth. And I feel like it's just been in the recent past that I feel like I've really conquered that, and we have a really well-oiled machine here.
Yeah. I've really come to realize that eventually I will have to build a team if I want things to go smoothly, and that seems to be one of the bigger challenges for entrepreneurs to swallow is that you're going to have to get some help, buddy. You can't do everything yourself.
Exactly.
So what's the one thing currently that you're struggling with in your business?
The one thing currently that I'm struggling with in my business are the very unsexy side of business ownership. And I'm talking like the legal aspects of business, the accounting, business insurance, like all that stuff that you really need to do and take care of as a business owner. I have zero interest in doing it. So it's really like I struggle to do it. Like, just different like legal documents. And luckily I do have a husband who is a lawyer. So I'm like, Jamie, I just need you to do this for me.
How convenient. That's nice.
Yeah, but he's like, I mean, he has his own he has a job and a law practice on the side. So it's like, not like he has all this free time, but I'm like, I really can't do this. And so there are really just unsexy, unfun parts of the reality of running a business. It's not all marketing and sales and serving your clients. Like you have to, have a privacy policy on your website. You need to have a terms of service. And it's like, guess what? You need to write those, or like have someone write those. You need to get business insurance. Oh God, I got to call an insurance agent. That sounds, I don't want to do that. So there's like all that stuff that I'm just like, oh. Yeah,
totally.
Nobody told you have to do this. I thought it was all entrepreneurship and personal development. No,
the boring,
some unfun parts of it.
The boring paperwork and
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't outsource it all too. Like some stuff you just have to do.
Right. So what's the biggest business triumph to date for you?
Oh, the biggest business triumph to date. Gosh, I feel like there's a lot of little things, but okay, going back a couple of years. So when I was about 6 months into maybe let's just say 8 months into my business, like after, 8 months in, after just starting as virtual assistant, I joined my dad's mastermind group, started, paying to be a part of the mastermind group. And right then I was at, my annual revenue was $50,000. And I set a goal that in that year, this was the beginning of 2014, I said in 2014, my goal is to double my revenue. I want it to be a 6-figure business. And I doubled my revenue by July. So within 6 months, I went from $50,000 to $100,000 a year in revenue. And so I think that was the largest triumph. And I've continued to grow from there. But I was really, really proud and excited. And I'm saying, from the beginning in January when I set that goal, I really had a hard time saying 6 figures out loud. It seemed like it seemed like a goal that was so far out there. I mean, I just looked at 6-figure entrepreneurs like they were just this, like, it was just something I couldn't reach for years.
Kind of like a unicorn.
I was like a unicorn, like 6 figures. Oh, only rich people make 6 figures. And it's like I've never been rich ever. I mean, I grew up I always had to work, like I said. So and then to do that in 6 months was just like, oh my God, it just opened my eyes to all the possibilities that are, out there.
Now, to set a goal like that, to me, there's some changes you have to make in your life and your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. What are maybe the 2 or 3, key changes that you made in order to focus on that 6-figure goal?
Well, for one, I had to start investing. So at that point, I had grown. I got to $50,000 a year in revenue by, people referring business to me, some organic growth, building relationships. But for me to really get to that goal, I had to put serious money out there. So one big thing that I did was I went to New Media Expo, which is a conference that isn't really in existence anymore. They think they went out of business, but I went to New Media Expo, which was a huge event. Really big event with my target audience. I, got myself there, which a flight across the country, staying in a Las Vegas hotel for 3 or 4 nights, and then getting out of my comfort zone and meeting people, going up, shaking hands, meeting people, being so new in business, not knowing anyone, knowing some people that I met over email and could meet in person, but it was a very, very new experience. So not only was it just nerve-wracking, but also financially. And I'm telling you, that was going on a credit card. Like I was going into debt, more personal debt to make that happen. And I also was at a point in my business where things were so new. I didn't have like a business bank account. I wasn't incorporated yet. Like this was all still really a personal hustle. It was really a self-employed hustle. And so that's what I had to do. I really had to get out of my comfort zone and take risks. So, that event has paid dividends, years to come. I mean, 2 years after that, people said, "Hey, I first met you at that event back in 2014. So totally worth it. But I had to get out of my comfort zone and start taking I had to start rolling the dice and seeing what I could do.
Yeah. At this point, I keep kind of glancing at the new podcast movement coming up.
You do it. Where do you live?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, yeah. So it's a little bit of a hike, but I got further. I'm coming from Rhode Island, so I love podcast movement. I've gone almost every year except the year I had a baby the same month that the event was. I couldn't go that year, but it's a fantastic event. I'm a sponsor at Podcast Movement. I've spoken every year that I've gone, and I really cannot say enough good things about going to conferences and events. I mean, the people you meet, the knowledge you gain, it's just invaluable.
You're selling me even more on it.
I'm a very good salesperson.
Man, yeah, I just keep looking. I was like, I should. No. Yeah, you should. Well, who knows? It may happen. Hey, I still got a little bit of time left. All right. Hang tight, successors. We'll return to our conversation with Interview Connections founder and CEO Jessica Rhodes after a word from our sponsors. Are you tired of using a ton of different services to help run your business? Here comes Zenlista to the rescue. With Zenlista, you can connect, post, schedule, and find content from all of your social media accounts. List and auto-update your company listing on over 300 sites and search engines. Generate live leads sent directly to your email. Monitor and manage your reviews and reputation before they're available to the public. See how you compare to your competitors. You can even create landing pages to gain new clients. Along with free one-on-one training after sign-up, Zenlista has all of this and so much more, all in one place. Exclusive for the first 250 listeners, receive 75% off the regular price. Sign up today at the4pos.com/Zen. Again, that's the4pos.com/ZEN. And we're back with Jessica Rhodes, founder and CEO of Interview Connections. So, how to podcast. How did you get that into the syllabus of Western University in Ontario, Canada? That shocked me when I read that.
Yeah, it was a pretty exciting message to get. So a lot of amazing things have happened with the podcast producer since we started a couple years ago. We just got Shure microphones as a sponsor. Literally today, Antonio, I got a big box with a whole bunch of awesome gear.
Awesome. I'm a gearhead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know all the names. They're in the other room, but that was really exciting. And so all that was, that was their sponsorship, giving us that gear. Podcast Movement was our sponsor season 2. And I can honestly say how we got this is, got the show into, Apple's How to Podcast section. It all starts with creating an amazing podcast, like putting the quality of the content, the production value, the time that you put into it. Like with season 1, we didn't get a sponsor for season 1. We didn't try. I can honestly say season 1 is an extremely highly produced, amazing show like none other. And it really blew people away. And we launched that season doing the show, creating a show that was different from every other podcast out there, in our category, of course there's just American Life, there's highly produced NPR shows, but when you look around at every other one of our peers, every other podcast kind of, that, we're friends with and things like that, nobody was creating a show like this. So first we just produced a show that just blew people out of the water, and that got people's attention organically. Like there was not a lot of marketing around it. Very simple website, really just put a lot of focus on, on the show. And so the professor of that class is one of our listeners. Wow. And so, a little while back, he sent us a message and was like, hey, I'm teaching a class on audio journalism and podcasting. Which episode should I have my class listen to? I'm like, wow. Yeah,
incredible.
Really cool. So, and then, with there's a section in Apple in iTunes called How to Podcast. And almost every other thing that we've gotten, the sponsors in the How to Podcast section asking for it, I literally just reached out to Apple, followed up as many times as I could until I, got a response of this is who we are. This is who our audience is. This is why we should get what we want.
Wow. And
so, yeah, high quality show plus asking for what you want pretty much has had to do it.
Yeah. I listened to the podcaster,
producers.
Yeah, the podcast producers. The quality extremely good, good, and not to mention
shortcut on any of it.
Yeah, and Cory's got a golden throat. Let's face the fact here. That guy's voice is great. It's perfect.
People tell him he it's a veteran voice.
Man, yeah, he's a pro.
A lot of experience in radio, so he's got a great voice for it.
And man, and it shows. It shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that highly produced thing, it made me question what I was doing. I was like, well, wait a second. Do I need to start producing my show more? And I was like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Or just have a secondary or a third podcast where I actually do a bigger production. But then again, I started thinking, where am I going to fit this in my schedule? I have no idea.
Tony, if I could just comment on that real quick, I think I think the lesson is just to always look at your show and say, hey, what can I do to make this better? It's not that you need to, Cory is the producer of the podcast producers. He does all the editing. I kind of joke and say, I'm the talent behind the microphone, but I did the guest and I've secured our sponsors. So I've got the voice and the sales aspect to it, but he does all the editing and he's got, and you obviously have audio engineering, lots of experience as a musician. But new to podcasting, I think it's just a matter of like looking at your show and saying, okay, what could I do to up-level my game? Can I get a better microphone, or could I add in some audio quality? I actually did an episode of Rhodes to Success about how to create an entertaining and compelling podcast. And I just give a lot of different ideas of what you could do to make your show better. And there's always things you can do. And it's just little steps at a time. With Rhodes to Success, I launched it, interviews on Skype, Podfly, did the editing. But since then, I've thought about, okay, what can I do to make this better? Okay, can I get original music? Can I, up? So there's lots of little things you can do.
Yeah. So now we get to the real deal of the show. This is a part where we get some information from you to inspire the successors in the areas of enhancing knowledge, health, wealth, and spirituality.
Okay.
So, Jessica, what are you currently doing to enhance your knowledge?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So enhance my knowledge. Oh, I'll give you a fun one. I am learning Spanish.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's cool.
And I'm really excited about it. And it was really inspired because I went to Cancun, and it's kind of funny because I went to Cancun and I was at a 5-star resort where everyone speaks English anyway, but it really inspired me. Like, if I'm going to go to a different country, I want to be able to speak their language.
Yeah.
And so I found this awesome podcast called Discover Spanish. And so every day for at least 15 minutes, I go through the lessons, and it is like, I used to just, listen to business podcasts and read business books. And I'm like, it's really actually awesome to kind of learn something that has nothing to do with business. And it just kind of enriches my brain.
Yeah, I bet it is nice to just get out of that business zone, because we tend to rope ourselves in it a lot. And we have no room for like real life sometimes.
Yeah, it's really fun to learn something different.
Yeah. So what are you currently doing to enhance your health?
Okay, enhance my health. So I've been exercising regularly for a while, and I eat pretty healthy, but just recently I started taking, this is so little, so I don't know if people are going to laugh, but I started taking my multivitamin again, my fish oil supplement, my psyllium husk, which is just a couple supplements that a fitness coach had advised me to take a while back. And I started flossing regularly.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, these are like all little things that really, I bet you almost every person listening is saying, I haven't flossed in a while. And so I started flossing again.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's funny. So what are you currently doing to enhance your wealth?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So enhance my wealth. So there's just, I guess, a lot of things in my business. I have written a book, as you mentioned in the intro, called Interview Connections, How to Rock the Podcast from Both Sides of the Mic. And I wrote that book, and I'm launching it at the end of January. And that is really to enhance my wealth, because I really believe in building, becoming an authority figure and just building your platform of your business. And so for me to have a book and to add that to my platform, it really kind of positions me as more of an authority figure, which leads to more growth in my business. Thus, more wealth.
Have you gotten into any types of finance or like investment type things lately?
No, but for us, we are still on a serious personal debt paying off journey.
Right.
We're working through Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. So,
cool.
We are not, other than having an IRA and saving for our kids' college fund, we're aggressively paying off personal debt. So I believe in doing that before investing anything.
Yeah. So what are you currently doing to enhance your spirituality?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know, honestly, Antonio. I'm not a religious person. So, I guess I do believe in like being spiritual and thanking God. And, but I don't know. I don't go to church. I'm I don't know how to answer that question. Maybe someone could enlighten me on how to enhance your spirituality. I don't know.
Have you done any maybe meditation or things like that? That's something I really struggle with. I don't know. I can't turn my brain off. Meditation
sounds great, but I have a very hard, and maybe this is like the whole point of meditation is to learn how to quiet your brain.
Right.
But I cannot figure out how to sit still long enough to do that. I don't know.
Some people can just pull it out of their hat, just bam, and they're meditating. And I have no idea how they can do that.
I don't know, man. I have 2 kids under the age of 4. I'm like, work kids. Like there's no free time for me to say like, I'm going to wake up and meditate every morning. I'm like, okay, I'll try that in 10 years. I don't know.
I feel like if I meditate in the morning, I may fall back asleep. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
So on only one of these 4 principles, what is the best advice you think you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. That is such a good question. I should have thought of this more. So I think the best advice I've ever received is just not give up, and to just stay committed. I have an extremely strong willpower and stubbornness, and I don't give up. So I think I can't really tell you who told me that. I think it's just kind of like a life lesson that we've heard, but I think the biggest thing is just don't give up, because it is hard work to grow a business and to reach certain levels of success. It's scary, and you just have to not give up and stay committed. Yeah,
absolutely. Are there any modern technologies or apps or anything that you're using right now to lead you to success?
Well, I will tell you one app that I love, and it is called Voxer, and it is a walkie-talkie app that you can use for voice messaging with other people who use it, and it is leading me to success because it has enhanced relationships. It has made communication easier, which communication is the key to relationships. If you can communicate easily with people, it's great. So it's just a free app where you just click a button and you say what you want to say, and then you turn the button off and it sends the message to people. So instead of texting and writing long emails, if you connect with people on Voxer, you could just send voice messages, and it's great. I love it.
Sounds interesting. So now you're extremely busy. So this question, you may wonder, how the hell am I going to fit this in? But is there what's the one thing, new activity or technology or skill that you're looking to dive into? Now, you told me you're about to start learning Spanish. Is there something other than that? I don't know if you even have room to fit anything else in.
I know, right? A new skill. What was it? New technology or skill or
activity or book or something you're just interested in really to learn and dive into?
So, I mean, I don't know if I could just give the Spanish answer again, because I'm really excited about it.
That's
and
good,
I think it's really fun. And, I've never had I don't know if it counts as a hobby. I have a hard time answering the question of like, what's your hobby? Cause I'm like, can my business be my hobby? Like podcasting, I love what I do. So I don't like have these separate activities that I do, but, and I mean, when I say I'm learning Spanish, I'm telling you like a podcast I listen to and I talk out loud through it. So it's a little thing. I don't go to a class or anything, but I think it's cool just to have something that, I have my mind on. And I'll tell you some of the motivations I have, why I wanted to learn is like, my parents have a timeshare in Cancun, so we plan on going back there for vacation. And I really want to be able to speak, to all the people that work at the resort and in different places. I want to be able to speak to them in their language because I'm coming to their country. I want to speak to them in their language. And I also have a motivation to volunteer and support immigrants. I've learned, especially throughout the election season, a lot about the issue of immigration. And there are, children that are escaping really dangerous conditions in their country, and they're coming here. And, if they don't get paired up with a lawyer, they could be deported back to really violent living conditions. And I really want to help that. And, not being able to speak Spanish, I can't really do much to help these people, unless except for, donating and supporting these organizations. And so I would love to be able to learn to speak Spanish so I can get involved with people that want to come to our country, because I think it's really important for people to be able to come here if this is where they're going to have a better life.
Yeah, and right now that's a very volatile subject matter too.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll be fluent soon so I can get involved and make a big difference there.
Good. So what is the one piece of advice you can give to our listeners to help them lead their way to success?
Decide what you want to have happen in your business and your life, and decide to do the things are going to help you reach your goals. There's a lot of, you don't be thinking about it. Decide to go to Podcast Movement, Antonio.
Yes.
Make the decision. The more you say, well, maybe I got to think about it. Just decide and move forward.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. My dad wrote a book called Decide, actually, and he writes about Squishyville, that area where you're maybe you're thinking about it.
Right.
Nothing happens in Squishyville. Things happen when you decide. So that's my advice.
Excellent. I love that advice. So, by the way, Jessica has a special offer for our listeners exclusively. Jessica, what's that offer you got?
Yeah, so we didn't talk a whole lot about one sheets. We talked a little bit about what I do with Interview Connections, and so if you want to be a guest expert on podcasts, my biggest advice is to have a one sheet. And this is something that has your bio, your interview topics, your interview questions, and it really positions you as an in-demand expert for podcasts. And I have a template on my website. I sell it for $7, but for listeners of this podcast, I would like you to have it for free. So if you go to interviewconnections.com/a-la-carte, that's interviewconnections.com/a-la-carte, and get the $7 one sheet template for podcast guests. It's the second row down. Put in the coupon code the4POS, as in the 4 principles of success, the4POS, and you can get that one sheet template for free.
Excellent. Oh, that's going to be very valuable. That's good. I like that. Jessica, thank you very, very much for being on the show. And finally, how can the listeners connect with you?
Well, listeners can connect with me by going to my website, jessicarhodes.biz. That's Jessica, RHODES.biz. And if I could just give one more plug, my book is coming out. You can get that at interviewconnectionsbook.com. I'm not sure when this podcast will be live, but it'll be launching late January. So interviewconnectionsbook.com, you can get the book for free. I'm just selling it for shipping and handling. So I would love, if you are interested in being a guest or a host of a podcast, my book is going to really, really help.
Excellent. Successors, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Jessica Rhodes. She was awesome, and I'm very happy she was on the show. Don't forget to share, subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or wherever else you can find a podcast. They're all over the place. Thanks for listening, and prepare for success. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
If you want to be more driven and more motivated in your life or business, go to the4pos.com/free book and grab a copy of my book, Indulge Your Affirmative Motivation Within. 25 motivations of personal development and life success. Get it now at the4pos.com/free book. Again, that's the4pos.com/free book.